Hi, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Really well, actually. Enjoying the podcasting day that I have had.
That's nice. I love a podcasting day. Have you had loads of interesting people?
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things that this medium elicits incredible conversations, partly because I stay audio as opposed to using the video externally. We can see each other when we're recording, but it's just such a beautiful medium to use, especially around the topic that I have for my podcast, which is purpose, because it's at the core of everything that we do, have. So yeah, I have this joy that is the podcast. It's my life's work.
It's ace, isn't it? I was thinking about this the other day because when I was younger, I've always been really, really into self-development. I remember the first books that I had were I was reading like autobiographies and self-help books back when I was like an early teen, a young teen. And I used to love watching Wogan and Michael Parkinson and any kind of chat show. I always wanted to be a chat show host when I got older, and I think this is a nod to my younger self because we get to have the best conversations, don't we? And if I'd have had podcasts when I was a kid, I don't think I'd have done anything else. I'd have just been listening to podcasts constantly.
It's so true. One of my earliest podcast reviews was Move Over Parky, and I was like, yes, I've made it.
It's ace, isn't it? It's ace. Oh, I'm glad you're a parky lover as well.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they were fantastic conversations, and but I think majority of them, he was just such a great listener.
Yes, that's it, right? Just sit and listen. And and Wogan was as well, they just ask some really good questions and sit and listen. So that's what I'm gonna do today, is just sit and listen to you. I hope you've got a cup of tea and you're ready.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it won't work if we both sit and listen, will it?
Yeah, this is my podcast, so I get to sit and listen on this one. It's all about you today. So I see behind you loads of great books, um, and one of yours as well. Well, I can see it right above the picture of your granddad. But have you always been a big reader?
Absolutely. I have such reverence for books. They are such a pivotal part of who I am. I have often have a book in my handbag or several books. If we go on holiday, I do take my Kindle with me, but I still take physical copies as well. Always to be found with my nose in a book. If I have a downtime, then it is filled with reading. I am not as lucky as you, though, Barbara. My goodness, I didn't stumble across the well, not shelf development, but self development. It's so much been a later
Mm.
discovery for me. There were a few books that I read, but more business books in my 20s, and then it was only in my early 40s did I then embrace the business development, the personal development space. And those shelves absolutely were so full by that time when I walked into the bookshop. It was just incredible. It's blown my mind, actually.
What did you used to read when you were a kid?
Oh, the classics. I was brought up in Stratford-upon-Avon, so Shakespeare, and my favorite books like Count of Monte Cristo or Jane Eyre and all of those books. Also some Jilly Cooper and
Mhm.
some real trashy other series books. I used to love John Grisham and Lee Child, all of those books. But no, it is now business or personal development books and autobiographies. They're fantastic.
Oh, and me too. I when my early days, my first autobiography, and it's probably a strange one actually, was I used to read, what was his name? Who was the vet from All Creatures Great and Small?
James Herriot.
James Herriot. Well done. So I read all of his books, and obviously they were fictional, based on his life. But that was kind of my first foray into autobiographies. And then I read Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings for GCSE. And oh my goodness, I thought if I can just start reading about people's lives. I remember having the aha moment when really young, which was, oh, they'll tell me everything if I just read it. They've just told me everything that goes on in their life. All I have to do is read their book. And so I just devoured autobiographies. I was completely addicted.
I read Richard Branson's one, Losing My Virginity. That was probably one of the earliest ones. And then there's been so many since. The ones that really stand out are Andre Agassi's Open, brilliant read. Just read, or actually listened to the audiobook version of Bob Mortimer and Away. Oh, that was beautiful. He's such a great storyteller. He's brilliant. It was such
Mm.
fun.
And I like stand-up comedians' books as well, the autobiographies, because they've really struggled in terms of their determination and their tenacity, and just they struggle in terms of their work, and just it's the constant. I love the well, this is the purpose of the podcast, right? Smashing your own ceiling. I love the fact that they dictate and narrate how they've smashed their own ceiling. So if you want to see or read about a struggle, just pick up a sort of a struggle to success story. Any stand-up comedian will do that for you. It's just amazing. But
Yeah.
I want to talk about your book now, which I can see
Oh.
right there. Tell me about your book.
It's called Focus on Why.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a book that has been in my head for decades. I kid you not, I used to sit on my bed as a young 8, 9, 10-year-old and start writing, and just never happened. Of course, what did I know at that age? But then it turned into screenplays more than books. But this book has definitely been something that is a childhood reality come true, because I wanted to write a book in the personal development space, but I didn't want to just add to the noise. It was a case of it had to be different, it had to be unique. One of my favorite books is Aesop's Fables. And so it was kind of like, I'd like there to be some kind of storytelling, moral. My grandfather was the best storyteller that I knew. And he was the person that you would move room to room at a party to follow, to make sure that you didn't miss out on his next story. And it's one that many of his friends would share with me, in terms of there would always be a group. Is like a little groupie of people, because he was a great storyteller. He was so animated. And so I wanted to tell the stories that he told me and share those. And then I thought, oh, I could write those, have some hidden purpose life lessons in, bit like Aesop's Fables, and maybe even short stories. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. That would be way too hard. He was a playwright for TV, radio, screen. He was this gifted person. I couldn't match his ability to craft those stories. So I didn't pursue that idea that I had. And then bizarrely, I was listening to a podcast and I heard someone we both know, Olga Gaydana, say, I can do a mindset scan for the first 3 people who listen to this podcast. And I reached out to her. I said, look, I've got this block. I've got this imposter syndrome situation going. I really want to write a book. I've got an idea. Can you help me? And so she said, yeah, well, let's just have a go. Are you willing to try something a bit different? And I was like, of course. So there I am, being told that I'm in a room which is empty. And then there's a chair that's appearing. So go and sit on the chair. And I said, well, I can't, because my grandfather's already sitting on it. And now this is 2022, the year, and March, end of March. My grandfather died in 1996, in October 1996. He hasn't been alive for ages. So the fact that he's part of this conversation that we're having now, I'm not deluded. I know that this was kind of like a pep talk that I was giving myself from his perspective. And yeah, Olga facilitated a conversation where I was him, then me, then him, then me, and having this conversation, this to and fro. And what he helped me realize, or what I helped myself realize, was that my podcasting was an extension of the broadcasting, and that I had been telling stories. That as a speaker, that's what I do. As a coach, I've got the lessons that I can share, and just get on with it. Just get writing. You write blogs every week. You produce all of this content. So yeah, I got writing. But then bizarrely, within 10 days, we'd been getting ready for my grandmother's 90th birthday at the time. She was a lot younger than him when they got married. So she was much younger when he died. And I had a great relationship with both of them. But unfortunately, she had a fall and she unexpectedly passed. So we didn't get to celebrate her 90th birthday. And as I was going through her things, I found a book. And because this is a video, I'm going to show you. So this is what I found, which is a commonplace scrapbook
Mm.
and dated September 1939 to April 45. And in it was the most incredible, beautiful writing. And I realized that my grandfather had kept a diary style journal from September 1939 when the World War II was unfolding, and then how he felt going into that, all the way through, fast forward 5 years of the time he spent as a prisoner of war. And when I opened this, it opened to this specific entry, which is September the 30th, 1942, proposal to write way of life, to meet the need for a planned life, to meet every circumstance of life, every facet of living. Now, to give you some context, I close out every podcast I have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. And here is my grandfather 80 years prior to that saying exactly that. And I'm like, this is crazy. What is the universe telling me here?
How amazing. What a gift. And I love a bit of a moment of serendipity. I just love those. I don't So what happened next? What do you when you had that moment and you found the book and you how what do I want to know? I want to know how it felt in that moment.
Okay, so serendipity is exactly what it felt. And I'm a big believer of serendipity. And combine that with this sort of synchronicity, which is the Jung phrase, which he termed to describe this thing that seems to be a series of meaningful coincidences, but actually they defy logic, explanation. But there is this interconnectedness between our inner and external events. And so what then happened was so many things. I realized that he'd written a play around being a prisoner of war. And so I wrote to the BBC and said, do you still have the script, or do you have a screening of it? And then I wrote a blog called Focus on Magic because I found a tape. I'd been looking for this script in my grandmother's house, and I found a tape of a recording. I'd interviewed him about being a prisoner of war aged 15, and I've forgotten. And here is this tape with my voice and his voice, a recording. I've been podcasting essentially for decades earlier than I thought I had. And I realized that this book could be how I tell his side of the story. So I could still use that idea. And so I did. And that's what Focus on Why is. But I wrote this blog around looking for the script, around finding the tape. And I get an email the next day from an Australian PhD student who says, I've got all your grandfather's scripts because when he came out to Australia, they're all here, and I'm studying him for my PhD. Would you like them? And I'm like, okay, yes. And then I get an email from my grandfather's nephew saying, I've got a article that he wrote about that particular play. I then find photographs, letters, all the letters that he wrote to and from the prisons, and to his parents, to friends, to peers, other soldiers in other camps. I find other short stories that he's written. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I've got so much material now. What do I do with it? And is it even okay that I use it? And
Mm,
then there's this, he wrote. Doubtless it too would contribute something to history, but a later chronicler must speak of this. I am the later chronicler.
mm, yeah. How incredible is that? Honestly, amazing. The the thing that pops into my head, Amy, is do you actually keep a diary now as a result of that?
So I had been journaling daily from December 2016 all the way through to this point, and it had been a daily commitment that I'd be making. I have in the past done it, but yeah, I also was keeping a diary, and I keep such detailed notes of every conversation I have with people. So yeah, I document. I am like him, this
Mm.
documenter of how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, what I'm experiencing.
You know, I had a conversation with my youngest not long ago because we love doing our family tree, and it's just such a great exercise. And we don't have anybody like your granddad, and who's we've not had the success that you've had. Um, but I found a book that, like a notebook, like a ledger, if you like, that was full of my grandma's handwriting, and it was things like a little recipe that she might have found, or a little note to a shopping list to herself, or she used to, and this gave me goosebumps when I found it. Um, Cut out of the newspaper motivational quotes, and which is exact. I used to do exactly the same and stick them in this ledger. And there's all these motivational quotes, and I love the dotted line, the threads through generations. And the one of the other things that happened to me was my mum was clearing out a her attic years ago, and she found books from her dad that I never knew. And one of them, there was two books, and one of them was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I had that, but this was like a really old copy. And just seeing his notes in there, and they were very similar to the notes that I'd made as well. So it's fab, isn't it? Where we're just all interconnected and we don't even realize it.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean, this, he wrote here that this commonplace scrapbook were his being notes, reminiscences, impressions, criticism, commentary, and work in progress or unfinished.
mm, amazing. And this is exactly what you're doing. So did you use all of that for your book?
Oh, I wish I could. My first draft was 135,000 words. To give you an example, this book finished is, I think it was 52, and I was told by my publisher it needs to be around 50. So I had to cut a lot, and it hurt me to cut a lot, but the book is better for those cuts.
Mm.
But yes, I it wove in his entries with mine, and I comment on them. I have this running commentary. So I have a framework, and his entries chronologically are placed in each step. As I talk about it, I share my stories, and then I share that section of the entries. And it's beautiful because they align so beautifully, so so well. It's incredible, but it really is a a piece of human nature. That's what we're looking at here. We're looking at this arc from imprisonment through to liberation, and it is achieved through reflection. Many of his peers thought he was daft because he refused to escape. But what they didn't realize is that he'd already escaped. He'd created this mental liberation, and he'd done that through his writing, through his craft and honing. I mean, he's a young 20-year-old, as he's 21-year-old, as he's going into the war. And then he's spending, the formative years of your adult life in prison, and yet he's studying for a degree. He does that by correspondence to the University of London. They put on a play, they put on Hamlet, and they have costumes that they've used from the Vienna Opera House. I mean, it's just incredible what resources he's able to bring to this space of him being imprisoned. And there's so much to be taken from that we often hold ourselves prisoner, and we do that by living with limiting beliefs, with other people's expectations or definitions, particularly around success. And to be able to free yourself is absolutely the best gift you can do. And I walked that walk, or walked that talk, by writing this book.
And how I love this story so much. How did you what did you I'm curious, what did you do beforehand? Did it inform your work then? Did you change? Did you pivot? Did you start something new as a result of all of this?
Well, I was already podcasting. So what happened is, at the beginning of lockdown, 23rd of March 2020, I was running a property training business and network with my business partner, and I thought we were going to take everything online. What happened was, he announced that he was no longer enjoying the work. And so a very disappointed Amy came off that call, and probably, and not probably, spent the next week with a lot of frustrated tears and snot, and like, how can this have been the case that we're not going to be doing this? Only to really reflect and think, actually, I don't love the topic. I love a lot of the practice. I love the training. I love the coaching. I love the networking. I love the podcast, all of those elements. But I also, like him, I wasn't in love with training this particular topic. So we were going to close out the podcast, and I had this deadline of the 1st of April. And I woke up that morning knowing that I was going to record a podcast with my business partner, and I wanted to direct my audience to where next. And I woke up with the idea of focus on why, and that was what had been at the heart of everybody's desire to build a property portfolio, was because of what it was fueling them, why they were doing it. And so that focus on why was at the heart of all my coaching conversations, and that's how focus on why started.
Mm,
So that was at the beginning of lockdown. The idea came on the 1st of April. The podcast was launched on the 30th, having recorded 30 episodes.
fantastic. What is your why then?
Oh, well, my why was fueled by complete and utter burnout of both my husband and myself. In 2016, we were both in the city, working in London, working, living out other people's aspirations, and being swept up by that, being swept up by so much of the busyness of London life, raising children, but getting home late. And then recognizing one night when my husband got home, just after I looked at him and I was like, I don't even know who you are. I don't recognize you. You're gray, you're ashen, you're absolutely depleted. And so what happened was, I had to switch off that autopilot where we'd been existing, complete a reassessment of what it is that we wanted. And yeah, I that's how I left my work. I resigned the next day and said, I need some time to do what I need to do, which was to focus on us as a family, because he was heading towards a destination that would mean I would be on my own. And
Mm,
so it was a real wake up call. His health was really deteriorated. So that reassessment on audit of our lifestyle triggered for me an understanding of what really mattered. So
mm,
what then happened was, I gave him, I said, 3 years and you'll be able to leave this. He did actually step down. He only worked 3 days a week for a while. And yeah, I was 3 days late on my delivery of that promise. But that was because he was able to leave on different terms, and he was able to take a redundancy instead of having to leave otherwise. So what happened was, he retired, and that was literally in the beginning of October 2019. And the plan was for us to travel more, to do what we needed to do together, that we'd promised ourselves all those years ago. We've been together 30 years now. And so, yeah, we completely realigned ourselves. So that's 2019. And then lockdown happened. And I get this opportunity to do another reassessment
Mm.
of what matters.
Yes, lovely. It's that constant reminder of this is what matters, this is what matters, that you're getting nudges, what I call universal
Yeah.
nudges, where hang on a minute, let's look at what matters again and revisit your why over and over again consistently.
Yeah.
How was it?
Yeah.
So when you were, and I'm sure so many people listening to this can relate to that, working constantly, getting home late, juggling, the juggle is real. And seeing your husband walk in and going, hang on a minute, I don't, where we've done, this is not where we should be. This is not right. Something needs to shift. It was that immediate an impact, wasn't it? That you resigned the next day. There was no waiting. It was all right, I'm doing this.
Yeah, I didn't have a plan at that point. I just had the why behind the purpose. And so the plan unfolded bizarrely, as these things do. I saw an advert for how to buy property at auctions. I went along to a seminar. It was just one of those free ones. I got upsold. It was another online course of property investing. I fast forwarded or fast tracked a year's program of mentoring in 3 months because I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I built that portfolio, which allowed my husband to step away from his job and then create this new lifestyle for ourselves. That was then how I learned so much around. I'd already done quite a lot of work in the property area. So I'd done a really big refurbishment of my own home. We had a rental property already. I understood it, and I'd done a big transformation on our cricket club and grounds. So that was a known space that I transformation is essentially the through thread here. It's what I do in my coaching, where I take something from where it is to where it needs or wants to be. And that shift and understanding was transferable. And so then when I saw some of the gaps in the training, I wanted to help other people, and that's what I did. Is the sort of practical sides of property investing, and that's what the podcast was beforehand that we had together, which was the real side of what goes wrong, what it takes, what is needed, and those things that you don't necessarily learn. So I was trying to help others not make the same mistakes that I'd made.
So again, you're right. It's the same things that you're doing, but just a different vehicle now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly the same. So let's fast forward now. How many years later was it when you started uncovering your granddad's journals?
Okay, so 2022 was when I had the idea to write the book in the January. In the March, I had my coaching session, and then 10 days later, my grandmother died, and it was a few days after that that I found the book. But I didn't. I opened it and read that page, but it was still too sort of raw and couldn't really do anything with it. And it wasn't until the December that year that I finally sort of sat down and thought, actually, I can. I read it from cover to cover, and that was the realization of like, oh, this is something. I then spoke to a publisher and set my sort of timeline. I wanted to give myself space for this. And so it was 2023 March that I started writing loosely. September 2023 through to December, I wrote the whole book, and then it got published the following. It takes a while. There's quite a few things you have to do. So it was then a case of all of the developmental editing, the copy editing, then the typeset and the copy
There's a
being
lot.
really nice. So that the cover design, all of those things. It then got published in October 2024, and my book launch was on my grandfather's anniversary of his 28 years since he'd passed, which was October the 29th, 2024. And so it was and it was held in the Victory Services Club in the El Alamein room. And that was a nod to my other grandfather, who was involved in the Battle of El Alamein. He was there. So it was recognizing, acknowledging the brave historic deeds of both of my grandparents, albeit that I wrote about the non-hero, not the hero.
Mm. Yes, yes. Oh, so good, so lovely. So, how has this changed how you see purpose and why? Or has it at all?
What it's taught me is that there is so much within. So I talk about that you don't find your purpose, that it's created and it's felt within. And it's very much the case that it is who you are and what you stand for is what, and alongside your values is what is this sort of chemistry, this beautiful synchronicity, serendipity, all colliding, and recognizing that there is this ability that you have in terms of, I've brought my grandfather into this century. I've brought him into a world that people didn't ever know him. And yet they're now being influenced by his words. And that for me is what is possible when you shine a light on a focus on why. This possibility, this opportunity of purpose allows you to serve, but it also allows you to step into a space that is going to create incredible ripple effects of the combination of our work together has brought him back to life, not just for me, but for those who didn't know him. And so many people have reached out to say, I just love the relationship, that unconditional love that he had for you, that you can see in the letters that he wrote to me. I've included some excerpts from the letters he wrote to me at university, and just the time that we spent. And that is what is so beautiful here, is that it is a legacy that we have created together, even though it's beyond the wire and beyond the grave.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It, the I like the use of the word legacy. I think that again, it's you've got something that's obviously going to last, but I think sometimes we can get hung up on that legacy, especially when we're looking at why, can't we? And think, oh, we've got to have a why that's going to create a legacy that's going to outlive us, and it can cloud our thinking and complicate things. So, what can we do to ascertain our why and just discover it? Because there'll be people listening that think, I don't know what my why is. I just get up and I go do my thing or go to work. And what is a why? And why do I actually need it anyway?
So many questions, and I think just take the pressure off. It is a process to understand more about who you are, what you stand for, and there are components that are needed to piece together this jigsaw. It is a case of it will evolve as well. It's not a fixed point. So where I am now is not where I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s. In my 50s right now, I am absolutely loving this next unraveling of where I'm going. I talk about this desire path of euthymia and eudaimonia, and it's a flourishing in the trust of knowing. And so there is this real depth to understanding who you are and being aligned with your values. I also talk about success values, not just core values, but success values of what it is to really understand and celebrate what success means to you. And that's a key part of the purpose area, because if you don't pause and stop and recognize what matters and celebrate it, then you will miss all of this. And that's what I'd been missing. And my husband had been missing, is that we'd been swept along, and we were existing on autopilot instead of living in alignment. So, this alignment piece is understanding what your intention is and the impact that you want to achieve from it. And if there is a gap between, that's the purpose gap. And that's what we're looking at reducing, closing. That can happen in a company as well. The difference between its strategy and its actual actions that are being conducted on a day-to-day basis, and if they're not aligned, again, you're going to have purpose gaps. So it is a process. The process I have as a framework, and that's in the book, it is understanding what you can and what you cannot control, liberating yourself from all of those that you can't control, to free yourself up to understanding and challenging the status quo, to capturing what really matters, to choosing what it is that you want to focus on, to creating that plan, to then taking it in and understanding who you want to collaborate with, to then committing to that plan with a focus on the why piece, the meaningful significance that you're assigning to your purpose, which is your overarching intention and direction in life, to then contribution, to understand what your contribution is here to change. This is the change that you're affecting, but it's also the change that you're experiencing as an individual. And it's a cycle. It just carries on again, going back to what you can and what you can't control, reminding yourself regularly that if you're caught up in moments where you're swept up again in the busyness of life, that you're not in alignment often.
Mm. These, I just want to kind of just step back a little bit. There's a couple of things that you said that are worth kind of just mentioning and highlighting a little bit, which is I love the idea of liberating yourself, because so often we get hung up on other people's ideas of what we should be doing, of how we should be showing up and how we should be living our life. And also sometimes I think we cling too tightly to things that we wanted to do in the past that might not fit anymore, you know, and we think, oh, we've still, this is where the bucket list comes in, right? Oh, I wanted to do that, I need to somehow, I need to fit that in, or I still want to do that. And the notion, the idea of just liberating yourself, you're allowed to let things go. You're allowed to change. You know, you're allowed to do things differently. I remember a many moons ago, I was back when I had, it was back in my corporate life, and I was taking over somebody who was retiring, and she was amazing, but she was the first person into the office, the first person, the last person that left. You know, if the company logo was like running through her like a stick of rock, and I remember her sitting. We were sat in traffic. We're doing part of our handover. We were sat stuck in a huge traffic jam, and we went quiet for a little while, and then she said, I'm a bit worried about you. She went, how are you going to cope with this job when your kids are so little? And without even realizing it, what spilled out of my mouth was, I'm going to do it differently. And she just went, oh, you know, and it was this light bulb moment that she had, and we had both had together, that actually with your ways I'm just not going to be able to be my way. And sometimes we just need to let things go. We don't need to follow somebody else's path. And giving yourself permission to liberate yourself is just, it it's it takes a weight off, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. And this is what I talk about in that concept of eudaimonia, which is this flourishing in the pursuit of what's worthwhile in life. And then combining that with euthymia, which is the real understanding of trusting and knowing that this is right for you, as opposed to what is working for others. Because when you are really aligned with what it is that you stand for, what it is that you need, what it is that you value, all of those components come together to this incredible understanding of what fulfills you. And that is so important. And that pressure to find my purpose or find my why is such a big one. I hear it all the time. People are stressed about it. It's become this elusive concept, purpose. And it's not, it's just a stripping back of understanding who you are and building that alignment and really stepping into this space of what's possible,
Mm,
and just playing with that, really enjoying it. To again, people get caught up in pursuing happiness, but happiness ensues as a result of being in alignment with your purpose.
yes, it really does. And it is just about stripping away what you thought that you wanted, or it's just allowing yourself the time and the space to think, right, what is it that I want? What makes me happy? What do I want from my life? One of my strap lines is to cultivate a life that you really want to live. And what does that look like? Yeah, it can be, and it can be anything, giving yourself permission for that to be whatever it needs to be at this moment in time.
Yeah, well, if you're going to cultivate, let's use that metaphor of planting the seeds,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so it is a case of it's not an overnight success here, right? This is a planting something that you actually believe in, the concept of knowing that you need to give it the right conditions to grow, to really flourish, and also to understand that even though you can't see something visible, we know that there's various things going on underground. Okay, and this is often in a fertile void, is that just because you can't see it doesn't mean things aren't happening and that you can't fast forward it. So to give you all these right conditions to sort of understand what it is you want, and then to provide it with the different elements to then harvest and recognize when it's ready, when you are cultivating and when you're harvesting and reaping the rewards.
Yes, absolutely. It's this. I think there's also a real need to nourish. So once you've got these thoughts, what, it doesn't matter how small they are, of things that you want to pursue or just experiment with and play around with and just see, try them. I always think try them on for size and see how they feel, but just to nourish that process. Because something else that you actually said, and um which I really like. It was the sense of commit. You said committing, that sense of commitment. I always think there's so much that happens in a decision, but we need consistency as well. Once you've decided, then you need to do something, but do it, give it time. So we don't plant a seed and then go ta-da, and then we've not got like a Jack in the Beanstalk moment where we look out of our window the next day and it's all done. We have to nourish it. We have to, give it what it needs. And that can often be just give it some time, give yourself some time to play around with things and see what happens and see what it looks like, but also follow your instincts as well.
100%. It's in the daily consistent actions that you're taking. It's in the understanding, and there's a whole school of thought that Tony Bazan created of try. It's TEFCAS, which is in every try you're getting this feedback mechanism of what success looks like, which is fantastic. And it really is an understanding that it's okay to not win, not succeed. That, I mean, the whole black box thinking concept is fantastic of understanding evolution of iteration. And so when I say focus on, it is a case of yes, commit, but also know that it's okay if it doesn't work. You now know that there is that iteration doesn't work. So let's just try a slightly different way. The collaboration piece there is a huge one as well, of not going alone,
Mm.
because we're not designed to be alone here. We're designed to work with others, to really collaborate. And I collaborated with my grandfather on this book. It's a perfect illustration of the understanding of there are resources at your fingertips. I had a publisher, I had an editor, I had a coach, I had so many people help me get this book over the line. I didn't just go alone.
And to take that help. Yeah, again, sometimes we can get caught up in needing to do everything ourselves. We don't. We're gregarious beings, right? We're supposed to be connecting with other people and collaborating and working with other people. We're stronger ultimately together. So taking the help when it's offered. So with that, where can people find you, Amy?
AmyRowlinson.com is the best place. I'm on socials as well. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all there. Amy Rowlinson is the best place to reach out to me.
We'll put all the links in the show notes as normal. But Amy, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved having a good old natter with you today. It's been fantastic. What would you say was your biggest takeaway
In life or from the conversation today?
from today? Sure, yeah, in life, yeah,
Yeah,
go a bit smaller than in life.
I think it's something that we didn't necessarily touch on, but you mentioned it earlier about the goosebumps.
Mm,
And it is to tap into the tingle because goosebumps don't lie. They show you what really matters in life. And when you understand what that is, it gives you that alignment of knowing that you are on course with what matters. So next time you experience goosebumps, tap into the tingle and look at what that source was that has elicited the incredible system that has been designed to alert us to what matters.
brilliant. On that note, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I've really appreciated it.
Thank you.